Hey YouTube, good evening. Gonna bring you, I guess, an urgent message, information that unfortunately was kind of on my radar and I didn't really pay much attention to it. And then Tony blasted it out today, putting a good urgency on it. And then I looked further into it, and yeah, it's all of that. I thought it was more of a just a discussion, regulatory this and that. And then I look into it, and they're talking about major legislation changes um, to water usage in Nevada, especially that of wells and what's known as domestic wells. Um, you can check out Tactical Tony's video. I'll put below. Um, Found this article, this opinion article in the Elko Daily Free Press, where it kind of lays out some of the highlights of the proposed legislation. And there's a lot of nuance into this as well. Certain areas are more affected than others by the proposal. That doesn't mean anything when you talk about future effects. And I think that's the real key is what makes this so dangerous. Um, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But they also have a link to a petition they've put out to go to um, some of the local legislators. It's focused to go into these legislators in the state, um, and these people are based out of Silver Springs. When I go to the legislative agenda, and this is for Friday, they've already had a series of meetings prior to this, which is kind of think what I had been hearing about, and but I didn't know there were legislative type of hearings. But there's going to be a big meeting. It's going to be at the legislative building in Carson City. This location, 9 a.m. Friday, which is, of course, is when everybody's working. So, got to keep opposition down, right? Um, don't know if that's going to be the effect on this. I've already seen several responses like that. You got that letter of the opinion to the editor and some of the effects of the other meetings. There's a lot of uproar about this. Um, One thing I want to highlight, you don't have to come to Carson City. If you're in Vegas or the southern three counties, this location in Las Vegas is going to have that video conference at that same location here at Grant Sawyer building, this room on 555 East Washington Avenue, if you know where that's at. I don't, but I'm sure it's not too hard to find. Um, and if past experience is any lesson, I believe you'll probably see more legislative people, legislators, at that Las Vegas location than you will in Carson City. There might be one or two here in Carson City, but a majority of them will probably be in that southern building. When they're out of session in between, you'll find a lot more at that Vegas location. So if you really want to get in some FaceTime with somebody, that might be the place to go, especially if you're from the South. That's where they'll be. And I'm sure this is drawing a lot of attention. All the documents provided, the material that goes along with this is attached. There's minutes from a Pahrump meeting they held in July attached here that you can look at. It has a summary, who was present, and kind of the different people who came up for public comment. This is all in Pahrump. So there's a lot of interest in these earlier meetings. A meeting was held in Dyer, which I'm not sure why you would hold a meeting in Dyer. I mean, it is literally the middle of nowhere. It'd be interesting to see the minutes on that. But it was previous to that in June. We could probably research and find that, but I can't imagine there being more than half a dozen people at that meeting. I mean, Dyer's a very, very, very small stop in the road. Um, so they've been having these past meetings, but there's several sources on here of recommendations. The state engineer recommendation, which is almost disturbing. There's recommendations to curtail all outside water use if you're on a well. So that would be including, like they were talking about in this article, plants, animals, etc. And it's right out of It's kind of interesting what he wants to get change the language of the draft. The curtailment of domestic wells only extends to outside water use, which is primarily the only reason to get a well, is to have that outside water use. And the curtailment's one thing, but when you go into well, this first, there's some recommendations from private well owners. This is actually from the legislators asking for public comment, and here's some. This is a good. This BASTA document here. They are calling for the elimination of the language that the state engineer is recommending. So, or the state engineer is operating under. So they are countering with some precedent and other hearings from the past and the nature of water rights, and asking that they completely eliminate the provision of here it says is unconstitutional, should be deleted. The possession of the land is a priority of water and domestic purposes and use. So they're asking that all that language completely be eliminated. That gives the state engineer even the supposed authority. And I think that's what gets down to the real nitty-gritty of the problem, is that the state engineer has so much presumed authority. I'm going to try to pull this up. I had it up earlier, and I'm not sure how I got there. Another provision recommendation. A lot of the issues are about over-appropriated water rights. What you have here is jurisdictions, instead of limiting to what's available, they have over-allocated for these super developments because they get more money from them, presumably, or that's one of the contentions, is that they're over-allocating, and that's what's causing a lot of the problems. And Pahrump and Nye County seems to be the gist of a lot of this. But again, it's the authority that is given the state engineer that I think is most concerning. If I can ever pull it back up, let's see if they have the reference. I hate it when you can't find something that you're looking for. But I encourage you, if you are in Nevada, deeply study this issue. If you can attend, you don't have to attend the hearing. The hearing will also be online, so you can just kick back and watch this website. It'll be view it on this, and you go to the calendar, and you can view the meeting as it's happening. Just make sure you sync up at 9 a.m. for the subcommittee to study water. That's what you're going to look for in the calendar. There should be able to be a click-through link, and it takes you right up to the video, to the two different locations you'll be able to see as they speak. So that's a benefit if you're out of state, especially. You just want to be informed because you know this stuff is coming other places. It wasn't just by happenstance. They referred to Utah in a couple of the documents I saw, and Utah precedent or actions, so that's something to follow up on. Cloud seeding is in the first part of the agenda, so be patient. This may not go quickly. If it starts at 9 a.m., there's also a section on basin management. So they're trying to divide up the difference between basin management and the domestic wells, even though they're kind of tied together. And that's one of the issues that the proposed revision to eliminate the language contends, is domestic well water is part of the soil, the land, and the standing right of property ownership, versus like the Nature Conservancy says there's no separation between groundwater, surface water, and all the water. Kind of like, the USGS and EPA presumes all waters are navigable waters and connect to the ocean, so they have dominion over everything. So who's going to win? That contentious back and forth about who has authority is going to rear its ugly head again, I'm sure, in this, if this keeps going. There's an issue of mine dewatering that also is Very interesting. I read some of these Nevada has a lot of benefits to mines, but when I started reading some of the numbers and some of this mining documentation, which is attached over here on the side, we're talking hundreds of thousands of acre feet of water are used by a mine location, and that's concerning. That they're probably not paying for a lot of that use, and they're not. They're definitely not paying going market rate. I bet that's part of the problem. People aren't, um, or the mines have an incentive to find another alternate means to do their business. And if I can get to the NRS, well, let's just see if I can pull this up. Oh, here we go. This is a click-through link. This might make it easier. Okay. So this is the legislative description of groundwater management, underwater wells, all the legal definitions of everything and how it's been defined for over 100 years since water rights and everything was established. And then there's a few amendments along the way. State engineer is given purview over all of this. And when you see some of the leeway the state engineer is given, it's probably the most powerful position in the state. As an individual and what they can thumbs up, thumbs down, which makes this legislation even more concerning because the way I read it, the engineer already has the authority to do a lot of things, and they're trying to get a language change for something that they should already be able to do. So it makes it sound like they're going after more power, which is definitely not the way to go. Rules and regulations of state engineers, statements of pumping tests. They have all percolation tests, definable aquifers, all those things under the state engineer. State engineer is authorized to make rules, regulations, and orders when groundwater is being depleted in designated area. So if an area is designated, they can make rules and regulations, which I think is what the legislation is going after, is the Nye County shortages that they're having, in Pahrump in particular. The way I read this, they already have the power to make rules and regulations. Revocation of temporary permits, restrictions placed on certain wells. So I don't know why they're asking for this additional ruling from the legislature when the state engineer already is granted this super judicial authority from the way I see it. So I'm going to look more into this. Ask you to do the same especially if you're in Nevada. Maybe we'll see you Friday. All right. Just keep your eyes open out there. Thanks, Tactical Tony, for bringing this to the forefront. Live free.